We have a nice article from USA Today called Katie Britt is the long shot Trump VP pick, showing there's no such thing as bad publicity. As the internet mocked Katie Britt for her dramatic performance during the Republican response to the State of the Union earlier this year, the Alabama senator said she was soaking it all in, excited that Saturday Night Live had chosen Scarlett Johansson to play her just 3 days later in its opening sketch. I actually was pretty pumped about that, the 42-year-old freshman lawmaker told her colleague, Senator Ted Cruz, Republican of Texas, on his podcast Verdict. I mean, my crime was like putting too much passion, too, much heart and soul behind the issues that I genuinely care about, and they slaughtered me across the airways. Well, maybe the slaughtering was due to the lie about a migrant girl getting brutalized due to Biden when it was found out that her incident had actually occurred while a Republican president, George W. Bush, was in office, but I digress. During her response delivered from her kitchen in Montgomery, Alabama, I really did think it was a green screen. Britt criticized President Joe Biden's border policies by telling a harrowing story about a child who was blank trafficked. But the anecdote actually took place in Mexico while President George W. Bush was in the White House. There was plenty more to get people talking from Britt's 17-minute speech. And like what drives me crazy is she still has never acknowledged, like even if you wanted to say the performance wasn't weird, you lied. And she never has been challenged by any journalist or person that she's been on the thing of with regard to this being a factually incorrect address on her part. All of which combined to help get her name trending on Google, and where her social media engagement skyrocketed as people fact check and react to the televised address that saw some as an audition to join Donald Trump as his running mate on the 2024 Republican presidential ticket. I don't think I didn't think she was going to get picked before the speech. I don't think she'll get picked after the speech. I think she didn't do as much damage to herself as Noam did with her dog story, but it's not going to help her in terms of securing that second place spot. Britt's ultimate chance of getting picked by all measures appear to be diminishing. Trump told NBC News before last week's first presidential debate that the person he picked would most likely show up in Atlanta to support him. More than half a dozen prominent Republicans seen as likely VP choices, including Britt's Senate colleagues J.D. Vance, Tim Scott, and Marco Rubio, attended a local watch party before fanning out in the spin room at CNN's studios to play up the former president's chance of winning back the White House. As for Britt, she sent USA Today a supportive statement about Trump, but watched the live coverage from Alabama. Location aside, there are still legitimate reasons why Britt remains a part of the conversation for a job working for Trump that should make her campaign pay attention. That should make his campaign pay attention. Her Senate campaign, which received one $60 donation from a large donor the day before a State of the Union rebuttal, collected $16,000 in large donations in the hours surrounding her viral SNL inspiring moment. Even more money came in for the following month. Britt has also been successful since taking office last year at making friends in high places, including Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell, who called her his favorite freshman in April. Yeah, I used to think that people didn't like McConnell and that it was like a good thing to not be seen as someone that he liked. So you would think being called his favorite freshman senator would be like an insult. Like the guy that is despised by the most unpopular sitting senator, from what I can remember, thinks you're the best new one. Maybe you're doing something wrong. And that little 16,000 that she received really is not that big of a deal. I mean, we've had politicians get millions of dollars. I'd be more impressed if they told us how many people donated, which I don't think it was that many, and that's why they won't mention it. But whatever. They like to hide certain things to make people appear more impressive. I think the sky is the limit for Katie Britt. Alabama Republican Party Chairman John Wall told USA Today, praising his home state's senator as someone who can reach demographics the GOP sometimes struggles with by appealing to disengaged voters. She's young, she's ambitious. She's already shown her capabilities and her effectiveness in D.C., and I would not take anything off the table. So if I'm trying to praise a new politician, right, someone that I think can go somewhere, I'm going to say, hey, look, the person, when they speak, they talk about these issues. Like there's some issue they've led on, right? I'm going to say that they're really good at addressing this group of voters because they talk about this topic, that topic. Being young and ambitious really, not only does it not mean anything, but it's not something that makes her stand out. I mean, Cruz. was young and ambitious, and to an extent still is. Rubio, Rand Paul, Tom. I mean, there's no shortage of young and ambitious senators and congressmen. So she's not doing anything different in that regard. It's just like really hollow praise for another one of these like empty suits that don't have anything to offer voters. In an exclusive interview last week, Britt skirted the direction question about her own prospects to land the job that would put her a heartbeat away from the most important job on the planet. She insisted on keeping her conversation with Trump private, but did confirm they had spoken recently. I certainly am excited to continue to work with him before him winning in November, Britt said by telephone. I feel like I will be a really strong ally in the United States Senate by continuing to push for the America First agenda. Britt's calculated deflection came on the same day several other potential VP contenders were appearing on Fox News, with their spouses playing up their own prospects for the role, and even in the case of Vance acknowledging there'd be a bit of disappointment if he didn't get picked. God, these articles, they just go on and on. So this is interesting because it confirms that she has spoken with Trump about being his VP. She's doing the same thing the rest of his sidekicks are doing. You saw this with the Sarah Huckabee Sanders interview from about a little bit over a week ago, 2 weeks ago, where she said that Trump was going to win big in November. She's not praising him as profusely. Like they're all predicting he's going to win, right? Because they're all part of his like sidekick brigade. But what's interesting is she's kind of, and this is the one part of this that I believe is genuine. She's going out of her way to admit, yeah, me and Trump talk, but then also to not directly say, oh, I'd like to be his running mate, or I'd be, because someone like Noam was like just profusely in love with the idea, yes, make me your running mate. I'm tired of being governor of this small state that is so sick of me that I've been banned from about an eighth of it because all these tribes are trying to get rid of me. Please make me your running mate. So with her, she's acknowledging, yeah, I talked to him, but I guess for the foreseeable future, I'll probably just be a senator. And that's her being smart, because there's some part of her that knows Trump could end up losing in November. And if he loses, there's going to be a possibility of a second insurrection, a second January 6th. It probably won't be on January 6th, though. And if that's the case, it could make her look bad. It could mess her up in 2028. Because I already said before, I think the most likely scenario is he's going to pick somebody else for VP. And then she'll either support the ticket, campaign for it a little bit, right? And then if it loses, and I think it will lose, but like let's just say for certainty that it loses, it'll put her in a strong position to try and like siphon off some of his supporters for a possible 2028 presidential campaign. I'm very convinced that she's playing the long game here, where she likes the prospect, the idea of like, oh yeah, people think I could be a Trump's running mate. Yeah, me, a senator who's only been in office for 2 years. I mean, I guess, back in 2016, Cruz could have been his running mate if they hadn't have had the bad falling out that they did. But it's just so interesting seeing these people, like, when they're talking about her, they make it sound like she's really accomplished something. Oh, you raised 16,000 after you gave your State of the Union response. Well, it's not surprising. I mean, that's when most people probably had ever heard of her. That's when she got the biggest highlight of her career so far. And then you have like the Alabama chairman. Oh, she's young and ambitious. Okay, but what does she actually believe in? What issue has she led on? It's all just so hollow. Everything is like, there was this one guy who said politics is like a football game where people are talking about their team and who they think is going to make the playoffs. That's really what it is, unfortunately, where it's just, here's this lady, and because of her gender, and because of like the whole like identity politics aspect of American electoral prospects, she is being considered a contender to be Trump's VP because Trump wants a woman, or at least that's something that people thought he wanted. And she is ambitious to some degree without actually like standing for anything, mostly concerned about her own career. So she'll kind of like skirt around the idea of, yeah, maybe I could take that role, who knows? But then also like, okay, if this ticket fails, I got to make sure I still have like a backdoor way to run for president later on. And I said before, like, the only way she can become president is if she gets picked to be Trump's VP, he has to resign or something happens to him, whatever, and then she takes over from that. I just can't see the Republican voters in 4 years picking a woman. I can't see that. as their nominee. They can vote for them in a state race, a Congress seat. You know, maybe obviously for VP because we saw that McCain had Palin, for example. But in terms of like this, we're going to have 60, 70 million, or excuse me, in a primary, we're going to have like 20 or 10 million Americans vote for Katie Britt to be the Republican nominee for I can't see it. And I'd love to be wrong with regard to thinking these people are have problems with someone's gender, but I don't think I am. So this article was interesting because it's again part of that same like maybe Trump will pick this person, but even if he doesn't, keep watching him, keep your eyes out for him.